Welcome to Vectary, the 3D and AR content creation and sharing platform that runs in your browser. In this tutorial, we're going to learn the basics of how to get started in Vectary, and we'll create this simple scene. To start creating, go to vectary.com and sign up. In your account, you can see the dashboard, where all of your future projects and teams will be located. To start a new project, click on Create a New Project or Plus New Project within the dashboard. Now we have entered the Vectary 3D editor. If Onboarding Tutorial appears, you can skip it for now, as we will go over the navigation in Vectary momentarily. Should you need it, you can always find the tutorial in the help section. If you already played around in Vectary before, make sure to navigate to the main menu, then Settings, and click on Reset Settings to Default, so you can follow the instructions of this tutorial step by step. Header and toolbar are located in the top part of the editor. You can also add the name of your project here. Just FYI, your projects are saved automatically. On the left side, you can find the objects list. All objects you add to the scene will appear here. On the right side, you will find the Properties panel. In the middle of the interface, you can see the canvas, or your 3D workspace. Within the canvas, there is a grid, which will be the base for all your 3D creations. Navigation in Vectary is very simple. To rotate the scene, drag the left mouse button. To pan, drag the right mouse button. To zoom, scroll. There are two main modes in Vectary. Object mode, where you create and assemble objects and apply various tools, and edit mode, where you can create and edit 3D geometry. For now, let's focus on object mode. We'll cover edit mode in other tutorials. Let's start with a simple 3D text. When in object mode, click on the T icon on the toolbar. Parametric 3D text example now appears on your grid. Let's change the text. Head over to the 3D text properties in the Properties panel and type Getting, using capitals only. Under text field, there are two drop-down lists. In the left drop-down list, there are over 900 fonts for you to choose from. For now, let's go with Montserrat. In the right drop-down list, there are different font styles. Let's set it to 800 to make it thicker. Now the 3D text became too tight, so we'll need to adjust the character spacing, also called kerning. Click and hold the left mouse button over the character spacing input field and move the mouse up or down. This changes the value and simultaneously applies the changes to your font. You can also type the desired value directly into the input field. Let's change the depth to, for example, 90. To smoothen the edges, switch the bevel on. Click on the arrow next to bevel to expand the individual properties. Let's decrease both the thickness and size to 1 for a more subtle effect. This is now the perfect moment to introduce the Vectary Gizmo, or the tool for all fundamental transformations such as moving, scaling, and rotating. To move an object, use the arrows. To scale an object or text proportionally, use the inner cubes. To scale in one direction, use the outer cubes. The arcs are there to rotate the object in multiple directions. To undo transformations, press Ctrl-Z for Windows or Command-Z for Mac. The added 3D text now appears as an object in your objects list on the left. In case the gizmo suddenly disappears, you can always bring it back by clicking on your object in the canvas or in the objects list. Now, we want to place a word started in front of the word getting into the same position you have already seen at the beginning of this tutorial. The easiest way to create and properly place the two words together is to duplicate the word getting and rewrite it to started. Objects can be duplicated in the objects list. At first, the duplicated object fully overlaps the original and isn't visible on the canvas, but as you can see, it now appears in the objects list. So it's there. The duplicated 3D text is automatically selected and can be moved to the front by using the Gizmo arrow and scaled down using inner cubes. Let's rewrite the front word getting to started in the properties panel. Now select the word getting and by grabbing and dragging the arc, rotate it to -90 degrees. To achieve that, hold down the Shift key while rotating and stop at the value of -90. As a final touch, decrease the depth of the word started to 30 in the properties panel. To properly place the two words in a desired final position, use the Gizmo arrows. To change the color of the word getting, first you need to select it and use the material properties in the properties panel. Let's pick dark gray. Remember, material properties only appear if you are in object mode or edit mode workspace. To increase surface reflection, set the roughness value to 0. It's good to name your materials for better orientation. For example, glossy dark gray. Your material will always appear in the drop-down menu, so you can apply it to any other object later on. To see how your design looks with lights and shadows, click on Render Toggle. Render Preview will automatically start after you make any change to the scene. Now our model appears to be floating in the air because it casts no shadows, so for now we can switch the Render Toggle off. To create shadows and ground the object in 3D space, first go to Object Mode, hover over Primitives, and click on Shadow Plane. Scale the plane accordingly. Objects now appear to be overlapping the shadow plane. We need to move them above the plane so that they will cast a proper shadow. To do that, let's rotate the scene to the snapped side view. You can also use the Tab key to snap right to it. From the side view, we can see that the objects are not above the shadow plane, which they should be. Select one object at a time by clicking on it and moving it above the plane. Here, you can use the render toggle again to see that our text "Getting Started" is nicely placed on the ground. Well done! Now, let's see what adding lights to the scene will do. In the object mode, hover over Lights icon and pick one of the light options. We will choose the rectangle light for nice soft shadows. Raise the light above the scene by dragging the Gizmo arrow. Let's preview it. You can also change the parameters of the lights, such as size, color, and intensity, in the Properties panel. Let's change the light size to 500 by 1000, but leave the color and intensity at default for now. Let's zoom in and focus on the reflections on glossy surfaces. These reflections and colors are created by an environment map, also known as HDRI, which you can choose in the Library tab. Pick from different collections, millions of 3D assets, thousands of custom-made materials, and environment maps. To change the environment map, simply drag it to the scene. As you can see, it has a great impact on the overall mood. Alright, so let's choose Studio One. To additionally change the properties of an environment, go to Object Mode and then Properties panel, where you can set light intensity and rotation. In the background section, you can change the background to specific color or use your own background image. Let's choose color and set it to light yellow. With the environment set, we can add the camera. The camera is used to save a particular view of your scene and offers additional features, which will be discussed later on. To save a view, first choose the view for the scene and then click on the camera icon. Now, if you zoom out, you can see that the camera is attached to your saved view. To enter or exit the saved camera view, click on the Enter View icon in the Objects list or in the Properties panel. It's better to lock the camera in order to not accidentally change your preferred view. To lock it, click on the Lock icon in the Objects list. Okay, so let's add a more exciting object into the scene, a box for example. In the Object mode, click on Primitives and select a box. Using the Gizmo, move and scale the height of the box to about 1/10 of its original height, then move it to the top left-hand corner. Let's say you want your box to have a marble finish. To apply any custom material, go to Library, click on the Materials icon, and search for the desired type. We'll search for the upper-mentioned marble. Drag and drop the material on the object. To customize applied material, go to Object Mode and in the Properties panel, click on More Options. Now you can edit all the material's parameters. For example, this marble texture is too detailed for the size of the scene. To resize it, click on Texture Transformation and change the tiling value. Let's set this one to 0.3. Let's add a few more objects to enhance this beautiful 3D scene. When in Object Mode, go ahead, add one more box. You can move the box using arrows, but there is a much simpler way. Grab the box with the center point of the gizmo. Now, if you drag the box, you will see that it's automatically positioned and rotated based on other object surfaces. This is called snapping. You can change the snapping settings by hovering over the magnet icon in the toolbar. To keep the snapping switched on, be sure to have the magnet icon enabled. Once you're done positioning, scale and move both boxes to fit your scene. Go ahead and change the color of the upper box to, let's say, peach tint. As always, name your material for better orientation. Now, we are going to add a sphere to the scene. In Properties panel, increase the width and height to make it a bit smoother. Move the sphere on top the upper box and scale down. Then adjust the material. Let's make it glossy, so go ahead and from the Properties panel, pick the already saved glossy dark gray option. To add pre-made models, click on the Library tab and then navigate to the 3D Assets icon. Let's search for the wireframe model by typing it into the text field. Let's pick this polyhedron wireframe model. Drag and drop it to your scene. Scale it down so it fits in nicely. Now click on the material icon and search for copper. Drag and drop the material onto the object. We want to make the color more subtle, so with the object selected, let's go to Object Mode and make the change in the Properties panel. Let's add one more object. In the Library tab, go ahead and search for semicircle. Drag and drop it into the scene. Change its position and scale it accordingly. In Object Mode and Properties panel, pick the glossy dark gray material. We will now go on to play a bit with Vectary's easy-to-use deformers and generators. But first, let's exit the camera and hide all objects to clear your workspace. We're going to start with a simple square plane from the primitives to create floating particles. Set the plane segments to 1 and scale it down quite a bit using Gizmo. Let's change the material first so we can better see our result. We'll use the copper material from the drop-down list. With square plane selected, go to Generate and click on the array grid. This creates linked copies of our square plane. Lower the offset value for each of X, Y, and Z axis. You can see that the array was automatically added above the square plane in the objects list. This means that whatever we are going to do with a component in the structure, the action will affect all components above it. So if we select the square plane and rotate it, the array grid will respond and rotate all the linked copies. The copies now appear too uniform, so let's randomize them by selecting the array grid in the objects list. Hover over the Deform icon and click on Randomize. The parameters can be adjusted at any time by selecting individual objects in the structure. By objects, we mean all parts of your 3D workspace. For example, if the size of the square plane is still too big, you can always resize it while it's selected. Now, let's bring back all hidden objects by clicking on the Hide icon again and go back to the saved camera view to position your new object into your 3D scene. The trick is simple. If you click on the top component in the structure, which is Randomize in this case, you can move, scale, or rotate the whole structure. Let's do that now. We have some space on the right side of the scene, so let's drag and drop a book from the library. Rotate and scale the book accordingly. You can see in the objects list that the book was added as a group of objects. In order to change individual materials separately, click on the desired object in the objects list, either the cover or the pages of the book. Now, let's go to Object Mode, select Cover, and pick the peach color from Material drop-down list. To add a cover image to this book, let's import a 2D image such as JPEG or PNG. Simply drag and drop the image from your computer and place it on the book cover. Apart from 2D images, you can also import more than 60 different 3D file formats into Vectary. Isn't that neat? If you feel that your scene is complete, let's preview it. Great. Let's add a little twist to the scene by adding a depth of field camera effect, which, much like a real camera, keeps a specific area in focus and blurs out the rest of the scene. Click on Camera and roll out the depth of field settings. Click on Target button and choose where you want your focus area to be. Remember, depth of field is only visible with render toggle on. Another amazing thing about Vectary is that you can collaborate on your project with your colleagues, clients, or friends. You can do this by inviting them to the team you easily created in your Vectary dashboard. The members you add can provide their feedback via 3D comments directly into the project you're working on. We'll cover this topic in more detail in another tutorial, so stay tuned. Once your project is finished, there are several options what you can do with it. Please note that some of these possibilities and features are part of the free plan, while others would require you to become a premium plan user. To export a 2D image, go to the Render tab, set the resolution and quality, and click Download Image. To export a 3D model, navigate to the Export tab and export to any of the following formats, or download the scene as a Facebook 3D photo. Click on the Viewer tab to export the scene into Vectary 3D Viewer and embed your model on your website. Be aware that the more complex scenes need to be optimized for size before generating. Optimization requires additional knowledge and time, and we are not going to cover it in this tutorial. For this scene, go ahead and pick a specific segment to be embedded. We are going to embed the 3D text. To do that, hide all objects in Objects list except the words Getting and Started, Shadow Plane, and Rectangle Light. In the Viewer tab Properties panel, set the quality, hit Generate, and wait while your scene is being generated. When done, copy the HTML iframe code and paste it to your website. Change format to link so you can preview your model instantly. Open the link of your website on AR-compatible smartphones to see it in augmented reality. To learn more about Vectary Viewer, watch our viewer-related tutorials. To share your project publicly, go to Share tab and publish your project as a Vectary public page that can be used by other users as a template. Congratulations! You can now start creating in Vectary. For more tutorials, check out our Learn section.